For the first time in over half a century, Syrians are heading into the new year free of the Assad family's brutal leadership. But Syria's new de facto ruler Ahmed al-Sharaa has warned that Syrians may have to wait 3 years for a new constitution and 4 years for elections. Al-Sharaa and his Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham have been trying to reassure people at home and abroad that personal freedoms will be protected in the meantime. In Damascus, those promises are already being put to the test as some bar owners risk reopening their establishments. DW's Rama Jamarkani reports from the Syrian capital on how the city's drinking culture is surviving under the new government.
Less than a week after the fall of the Assad regime, Kifah, the owner of a bar in the heart of the Syrian capital Damascus, decided to reopen his bar. A risk Kifah didn't know what awaited him, now that the country is under the control of fighters from the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, former insurgent group.
The first few days they told us to stay in our homes, so we waited. But this is how I make my living. The bar is not a cultural or entertainment place, it's an economic reality. There are people who live off their work here, so I decided to open the bar. At first I removed the alcohol bottles. I was afraid and I stood outside. After 2 hours I put the bottles back, my friends came, we organized something like a demonstration and things went well.
Against expectations, Kifah didn't face any significant problems. The same was true for Bisan, the owner of another bar that recently reopened.
Armed soldiers came to us and asked, "Who allowed you to reopen?" We replied, "We had no instructions to open or close." It bothered us a little bit that they insisted on entering the bar, but no problems occurred. We know they had no right to ask, but we answered to keep things friendly.
At first, there were few customers, but things turned to normal after about a week. Gathering in bars turned into opportunities to celebrate with the revolutionary songs that were dangerous to listen to in Damascus just a few weeks ago.
When the regime fell, no one expected bars to reopen. We had misconceptions about the new rulers. We didn't know what they want or how they think. We're still getting to know each other. We reopened a week after the regime fell. On the first day, everyone came to test the waters, wondering, is it really possible that we reopened the bar? They said, let's dance. People turned from fear to celebrate with revolutionary songs.
The first time I came to the bar, I was scared, but step by step it faded. When I saw everything was normal, I even started sending pictures to my friends, showing them that we're here drinking to freedom and life is beautiful.
I'm not afraid and I can live without going out to the bars. What matters is having a better life, finding jobs. That's what concerns us.
For many, keeping bars open in Syria goes beyond drinking alcohol. It represents preserving a certain lifestyle.
In our region, in Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Egypt, alcohol was never just about getting drunk or celebrating. It's part of a cultural and social scene. I fear that this culture might disappear. I hope it remains because it's created a unique flavor. It's a touristic and economic presence, and it gives the city a positive identity, so yes, I'm afraid to lose it.
Bisan has had to consider an escape plan in case of her bar, which is her source of income, closes.
I don't have an escape plan yet. I never in my life thought about leaving Syria. I used to travel a lot to visit my brother in France, and I always came back. I never thought about staying abroad, but if I feel it becomes necessary, I'll consider it.
In the bars of Damascus, mixed emotions, joy and fear. Joy that the Assad regime fell, and the fear of losing small gains in personal freedom.
Ibrahim Al-Asil is Syria analyst at the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C., but today he joins me from Damascus. Welcome. Thanks for joining us on the show here. So I just want to ask you a question, a personal question here. How does it feel to end the year in Syria without Bashar al-Assad in power?
absolutely feels great, for me to be sitting here and talking to you with freedom, the fear that someone will knock at the door and take me to a detention center. This price to be able to live this moment for me was very high. It was paid by hundreds of thousands of Syrian lives. We're talking about more than 12 million Syrian people, excuse me. Half of the population were displaced, and we're talking about more than 100,000 people who were forcibly disappeared. So this moment has mixed feelings. It has joy, it has lots of happiness, it has some feeling of safety, but also it comes with a lot of sorrow and lots of thoughts of those who really sacrificed everything for people like me to be able to sit and enjoy this moment.
And so just to be clear, you would not have been able to go to Damascus before the fall of Assad. Can you tell me more about that?
Yes, absolutely. So the last time for me I was here, it was 2011, in November 2011. I was detained for 4 days at the Syrian Air Force Intelligence Detention Center. I was interrogated, I was tortured, and then I was told that they would keep an eye on me to see how I behave and how my family behaves afterwards. So just for any Syrian to give such an interview the way I'm talking to you today and to go on air, that means this person would disappear. They would be detained, they would be tortured, and probably they would never see the light again.
So it really is a big moment for you there to celebrate the end of the year. And I think one thing that's might be confusing for outsiders too, though, is that Damascus, since about over the past few years, has become somewhat of a party city. There were open bars. There was a fairly liberal social scene there, despite the harsh political crackdowns that were happening in the background there that had a lot of people worried that their family members would disappear. So are Syrians worried that whatever small social freedoms that they did have under Assad might disappear under an Islamist leadership, depending on how things go?
Yes, so there were some angle of social freedom when we talk about some small parts of the city. But of course, by the way, that wasn't for everyone. That wasn't for every lifestyle. We also talk about large neighborhoods that were cracked on, that they were not able to even practice their social norms in the way they wanted to, based on their political affiliation or based on if the regime looked at them as being loyal or disloyal, or if they pose any threats for the regime. And when we talk about the areas of the city that it has bars, in the first few days, of course, there were a lot of anxiety among bar owners if this will continue or not. But very quickly, I think that the picture became clear that the new rulers would not intervene in their daily life or in the lifestyle of those neighborhoods. However, there are still some fears when we talk about the bigger picture about democratic institutions. So while we feel today that this new political entities would not intervene in the some individual liberties on the individual level, there is still some big questions about if there will be democratic institutions to protect those liberties systematically, and if everyone would be able to enjoy that sort of liberties.
Right. I wanted to ask you more about that, because part of the spirit of the Syrian revolution that was crushed by Assad and started the civil war was a push toward a democratic, liberal, secular state. A lot of young students wanted not just to go out to bars, but to have that kind of nightlife as a symbol of personal freedoms and a kind of democracy. So what hope is there that they might still be able to achieve this under a regime that was not put in place by a revolution, but rather an insurgency?
Thank you for that great question, because if something most Syrians agree on is that they do not want the state to intervene in their daily life, whether those who are conservative and religious, whether those who are not religious at all, and regardless of their religious or sectarian background, most people want to live some sort of lifestyle that it's not imposed by the state. And even those who are religious in Syria, they do not want the state to tell them how they are, how to practice their religion. So today we see there is a clear movement in Damascus and in many other cities and towns across Syria about civil liberties. Civil society is regrouping, especially in areas that was under the regime control, where that civil society was hugely oppressed and almost at some point wasn't able to breathe at all. People now are regrouping, and they are talking about their priorities and how to push against the current authority to maintain that space of freedom and, of course, enlarge it and make it constitutional and protected by democratic institutions.
Okay, Middle East analyst Ibrahim Al-Asil in Damascus. Thanks so much for this talk, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too. Thank you.